Alright, well, today, same truck we were on before with the exhaust replacement. Come on, it's a little windy out here today. Today we're going to replace the steering stabilizer. So it looks like a big shock. You see this one here's got a lot of play back here.
How long have you had that?
This one's only been on about a year. This was like supposedly a factory replacement from Advance or O'Reilly or one of those places. When I took the other one, the original one off, it was a little bit loose, but not bad. It was actually about as stiff as this one was. So, but when I took the old one off, I somehow boogered up the threads here and bent them, or they were bent before I started. So I went ahead and put it on anyway. But it's definitely not as big and strong as the original. But with all this play back here, you can hear it. It's done. And it's only been, what did I say, year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay, roughly. Maybe 2 years tops. I bought the Bilstein, or Bilstein, I don't know how to pronounce it. Heavy duty replacement. It's way bigger, better, and stronger than this one. It's probably more like an OEM, because the OEM was pretty big and stout. But everybody gave this one good reviews. Now, steering stabilizers, like everything else, everybody's got opinions about what they do and what they don't do, what they're for. But I do know that when you're going down the road and you have this little bit of it's not designed to tighten anything here. What it's designed to do is take some of the road irregularities out, and also if you should take a big hit on one tire or the other and it tries to push your wheel over a little bit, take some of that shock out. So you can actually drive without a stabilizer. It'll be okay, but with a stabilizer, you take the shock out of those hits, and the small irregularities that you hit, maybe you've got a tire that's out of balance or something, it'll take and soften some of that to the rest of your suspension components, which is it has its purpose, no question. I don't think the duals are a big necessary thing for this kind of truck. Even though it's an 05 big heavy diesel, 4-wheel drive, we got it to pull that big trailer into some god-awful places and be able to get in and out. When you race dirt bikes, you get into some really bad places. Anyhow, I don't need a dual. Maybe if I had 40-inch tires on it or something, a dual might make sense. But for a more stock truck, not modified, but a work truck, it makes sense to have a nice one on it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull this old one off, put the new one on. This nut on here is a Stover lock nut. A little stubborn to get all the way off, but they don't loosen. I like them actually better than I do the nylon locks. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, just like the Jeeps, these trucks are prone to the infamous death wobble. This one never had it. It's always been tight. It's got 205,000 miles on it, but it has standard tires, stock tires. And I've got a bracket to put here that comes off the bottom of the steering box to keep everything tight there. I hadn't put it on yet, just got it. We'll do that later.
Twenty minutes later.
This bolt was extremely stubborn, and what should be a 5-minute job turned into about an hour, which seems to be pretty common when you're messing around with trucks and Jeeps and dirt bikes. So if you've ever had a 5-minute job take you an hour, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and we'll show you some ways around it. Anyway, I found this big fat washer that I had gathered up from some stuff I had left over from some jobs back in the day, and I used that and then spaced it out, put the nut back on it, used the large pickle fork to go in there and wedge against here, because I'd have plenty of flange here to work with. And I know not everybody's got these laid around the house, but it sure does make things a lot easier when you have stuff like that. That taper joint which goes in here, was extremely tough, and it's supposed to be. But I didn't think I was gonna be able to get that thing out of there. Finally, came up with a way to do it, and it worked. So now we're gonna put the new one on, after a 5-minute job turned into an hour.
So also put this crowbar here.
Yeah, we put the crowbar under here to take some of that. When you beat on your bar, it sits there and flutters. All of your strike and your shock is taken out by this thing flexing. So we put this pry bar in behind it and supported it that way, so every hit that I gave it didn't something. Right, it didn't. This thing just didn't flex with it and take all your shock factor out with each hit, and that means a lot, because you really want to shock this thing into popping off. If you've ever taken a ball joint off and you get a lot of tension on it, it goes pow, and it moves about a 1/16. That's that shock value. Once you get enough tension on it and it jumps, fortunately this one's easier, smaller, it jumps completely off once it moves. So anyhow, reason for me replacing it to start with.
Yeah, it has a little bit of,
side to side's not too bad, but end to end,
it's moving.
That shouldn't be there. Yeah,
just like the last one.
Actually, not as bad, but okay. Now, the play we were having is because this is ovaled. My guess is because the other shock or the other stabilizer base wore out, and it wore into this bolt. You can see how shiny it is, and it's not round. So we're going to can that one, and I just happen to have a stainless steel 2.5 inch. It's 3/16 stainless. It's a good replacement for it. It'll last a long time, and they don't rust. And I know you got one in your garage laying around somewhere that you're not using. Everybody has 1/2 inch, 2.5 inch long 3/16 stainless bolts laying around. So we're gonna put that in place of the other one and take all that slop out. She's gonna, that's why it had a small head on it. I'm gonna turn it around the other way.
Easier to get to anyways.
It is. Gives it more shoulder to land on and ride anyway, so it's a much better option here. Okay, we're good. Plus it gives you the same size bolt head on both sides, which is always a good thing. Let me tap on that just a little bit. This is for beating.
Them your beating rings?
Yeah. I don't know if that thread is the same or not. I'd rather have the bolt head on the other one. It is not the same.
The other bolts are boogered up.
Well, this would have been a better bolt.
Yeah.
I'm not wild about these. That's a metric, or it could be a fine thread, I'm not sure. So we'll use the one they gave us. Use the original hardware on this one now. Tighten it down. And since this is a Bilstein, which is actually a German company, they gave us some German torque specs for this particular bolt. For those of you that know anything about German equipment, and maybe the German language a little bit, the torque spec was Guten Tight. Well, it's like Guten Tag is good morning. Guten Tight is just good and tight. There probably is a torque spec that you're supposed to put on it, but I'll tell you what, I have yet to see one come loose.
From mashing down.
Using the Guten Tight method. There it is. That is all there is to it.
There it is.
Good as new. Actually, better than it was, and about as good as it was when it was rolling off the assembly line. So
that's as good as it gets.
That's as good as it gets. We're finally done after 2 hours for a 30-minute job.
Yeah.
Almost.
We started about hour 20 minutes ago.
Okay. Yeah. 20 to 30 minute job turned into an hour and 20 to 30 minutes. And that's normal. Nothing ever goes exactly the way you want it to. We're good and tight now. We got no play, none of that rattling. And this is just a beefier stabilizer itself. It's way better quality than the one I took off. It's probably a duplicate of the original as far as quality goes. The manufacturer does use some pretty nice parts right off the bat. They're expensive if you buy them as replacement parts, but you do get what you pay for. And it didn't take a whole lot of wrenches. This was the creative part here, was to get that off because of the springing on that bar. And my pickle fork actually would spread when I tried to get it in here. There's enough of a rolled edge on that bolt where it would drop down over it, and it would spread and get onto the nut itself right there. So when I put this huge piece on here, real thick steel huge piece, it allowed me to use the bigger pickle fork, which would clear the bolt head and go right over it, and allowed me to pop it off because the pressure was on the arm and that big, more than 1/4 inch thick piece of steel. So it worked out pretty good. We had the necessary crap to do it with, and I hope you have the same kind of stuff I've got. Sure does make it go a lot easier. That and a big heavy short hammer for short strokes.
That is a nice hammer.
If you don't have a lift, and I don't have a lift, but I have 4-wheel drives, and usually you can work up underneath them. And this one would we would have been a little easier if we'd had a lift.
No, it wouldn't.
Because you couldn't get much of a swing with your pickle fork out here. So anyway, that's it. We're done with this part of it, and we've got, like I said, we've got the steering box center shaft brace. I'm not going to try to put that on today because, you know, it should be about a 30-minute to an hour install. But you know the drill. Everything that can will. And if you start too late, you may not finish it before it gets dark. Starts getting cold this time of the year, so I'm not even going to bother. We'll do that one later. See you guys.